Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. Today is not a video interview, but only audio for the reason of all members of a band and also the one that I'm talking to trying to not become mega Metallica arena filling superstars that they already are, of course. But they want to stay anonymous, which is totally fine with us. And therefore, I won't even say a name. I'm just happy to tell you that one member of one of my favorite avant-garde black metal bands, whatever you want to call it, is here with us. And the first question that I have to ask, because the name is it Japanese?
Yeah, so it's the forever question. Is it Chinese? Is it Japanese? It's whatever you want it to be. I'm going to do my best to give you the pronunciation. I am not a native Japanese or Chinese speaker, but it's Mungyo Bingja.
Mungyo Bingja.
Yeah, but Sleepwalker, nice and easy.
Mungyo Bingja. Now it makes a little bit more sense. 4 signs for 4 words. Does it have the same meaning? Mungyo Bingja. Is it Sleepwalker?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of interpretations on how you break down those individual letter forms and characters. What we liked about it, and I mentioned this to you some time ago in the other interview.
Yeah, the written interview that everybody can find on our website, by the way.
Exactly. Definitely go check that out. Not to be duplicative, but yeah, every character has its own meaning. There's, the idea of somebody hallucinating as they walk in dreams and things like this. In certain other native tongues, it means moonwalker, which is also something that, is very much apropos for us. Because people supposedly went crazy when the full moon was out. That's why it's called moonwalker. So a lot of meaning infused there. Take it for what you will, but yeah.
So to make it clear, I'm very happy to have one of the guys from Mungyo Bingja here with us. Sleepwalker, however you want to call it. Is there a third version? Because I know that 3 guys, 3 different continents. Is there maybe like in the other language that?
There's a couple other ones, but we can reserve that.
Okay.
We can reserve that for people looking it up and finding their own meaning. We like that. We don't like giving the complete picture away. So,
which is cool. And by the way, if anybody now wants to know a little bit more about the anonymous thing, just like our friend here already told us, check out the interview that we did 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. 2021.
Yeah, when I was still young to this thing. We spoke a lot about this anonymity and all of that. We will also talk a little bit about that today, but if you want to have a little bit more insight and a little bit more details on that, then check out the written interview that you find on our website. Did you free choose this name collectively, or is there someone who said, like, I got the perfect one for us?
We had a list.
Okay.
We had a list. And again, everything kind of began as almost a sketch. We wanted to see whether this would work because we're split apart, pretty far apart.
Yeah.
So we had a list, and this one just felt right. Felt right. There's a certain codification that kind of comes with the name too. I mean, the fact that you have questions about it, many people have questions about it. We found that interesting and apropos. But yeah, the anonymity thing, I mean, take it for how you want it. The moment you start putting faces to things and t-shirts of bands are wearing in their promo pictures and all that, it starts to get kind of banal. So
and it also, and that is something that we'll talk about later, it also takes a little bit away from the music. But first question, after we have now settled on the name, first question here on Veil of Sound is always, what is the band merch that you can pluck today? If anybody asks, I'm wearing a shirt by one of my favorite German black metal bands, Unruh. Very avant-garde, but not in the way that Sleepwalker or夢遊病者does it, but also definitely not typical black metal. But you wanted to pluck something, which I love.
Yeah, we have a brand new long sleeve. Saying brand new is also a funky thing because a lot of the stuff that we've been working on has been long in the making because of delays and COVID and pandemic and war and everything else. But we have a brand new long sleeve. It's actually based off of some of the design that was done with a split with a Sutek Hexen. So it's on our website. It's the only site that we got out there, vnkv.bandcamp.com. And you guys can check that out.
I have to make a cut here for 1 second because I have to switch connections. I just saw that it was a little shaky.
Sure.
So I might be gone. Once in a while it worked fluently. What strikes me about the band is the anonymity, of course, apart from the wonderful music. Wonderful, challenging, however you want to call it. But something that struck me is how much of an esoteric person are you or are the others? And you will find out why I asked that in just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question too. I mean, I would say directly from the definition of esotericism, I would say maybe the drummer is a little more than the rest of the two. But I would say that a big chunk of our lyrical content has to do with superstition. So if you were to make the connection between esotericism and superstition, you know, to me, it's kind of on the same plane. That I would say that I'm very much conditioned by superstition.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I asked the question because, as we have already hinted, there is another interview, and you have, in that interview, hinted at the importance of not personalizing music. And then the question to me is music everywhere in the sense of like physical matter that never ceases to exist but only changes forms? Would you say that?
Yes, without a doubt.
And then the next question, of course, must be, do you consider the band to be nothing more than a filter, a medium?
Yes, absolutely. I think, again, all our records are written. I know that talk about esoteric, right?
Yeah.
I think we're just pulling them out of the ether at this point, you know? And that's also important to us because you got to follow intuition. And I think that filter and that prism is, to some degree, intuition. That's why we have a lot of parts that feel improvised or are improvised. So that's very key.
But you would not go as far as say something like, okay, there is a predestination that brought the three of you together.
I mean, I think my conditioned superstitious mind probably would allude to that, but again, you kind of make your own connections. There's some synchronicity that definitely happens with this band, and that's happened with our quote unquote formation. So I would say to a degree, probably some level of predestination probably happened for it to occur, but it's hard to say. I mean, you know, there's two sides, right? People say the world is random, it's all death, we all die, and that's the only constant that we have. So hard to say. Again, I wouldn't say anything concretely.
But then, you know, you've already hinted at it, you know, you being a filter, a medium for a music that has already been written before you even came together. Would you then say that music has its own personality, its own individuality?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really key. I mean, you know, there's already a Megadeth, there's already a Voivod. You know what I mean? Like these bands already exist.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to take influence from a gamut of, you know, a huge gamut of bands that we're influenced by. Not to say those are the only two or those are the two, but you know, just the first thing that came to my mind. But yeah, I would say we definitely try to remain true to our vibe, if you will, when we're making something. And as free as they may seem, I think the conceptual threads between the records and between the songs, to us, are pretty clear. I don't know if it's clear to the listener, but I think that synchracity is it definitely for us is really key, and for us it's important. So if there's something that starts to feel like it's veering into territory that's incredibly familiar, I mean, with that said, in the same breath, I feel like I'm just rewriting Scorpions riffs, honestly. But
I'm a German. Don't go there. Don't go there.
Why not? You hate them?
I mean, like, I'm probably the first generation metalhead that grew up post Scorpions importance. I can see that there are Scorpions records that are really important for the development of metal. But the first Scorpions record that my friends and I got into contact with was, what is it? Crazy World, the thing with Wind of Change. And I mean, like, apart from that one track, which is also only important because of its historical connection, the rest of the record just sucks. And they have never done anything afterwards where I would say, oh, that grabs me by the throat and grabs my attention. And therefore, probably the problem of having been born at a time when Nirvana, Rage Against the Machine, Faith No More, Alice in Chains, however you want to call them, became much more important than the Scorpions. That's just the thing.
Sure, that's fair.
But I know what you mean. Coming back to the individuality thing of your music, would you then also, if you had to do like a hierarchy, you as a trio, 3 musicians, and your music, which one is ranked higher, the music or the 3 of you?
The music. Yeah. I mean, that's the final output, right? And I think a certain empathy goes a long way. Dare I use that word? Like, we're not trying to, especially without identifying ourselves, we're not trying to make it about the individual self. I think it's the collective self of the 3 of us making this. So the final trump card, I would say, is just the records and the songs.
However, you also had a lot of guests on this record, on the new record.
Yes.
I don't want to go through every single collaboration, but how did these come together? Did you approach some people? Did some people approach you, or?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we individually talk to a lot of people on a daily basis. There's people within, you know, the scene around where I am that kind of passively know that I'm in this band and I'm doing this and what have you. And I think there's always interest. I mean, I would say humbly, I would say there's more interest for us to reach out to people because there's, quite frankly, way better musicians out there than us. So when we write the music and we feel like we hear something during a certain part, we say, hey, let's look at the library of sound. Let's look at who would be into this. And it's fun you bring up guests because we have 2 albums right now that we're working on almost simultaneously. One is a little more done than the other one, and one of the people on the record that's closer to being finished, I never dreamed or thought this person would ever say yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I think it's kind of stripping the ego and the self and just being thankful that people are willing to collaborate. That was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Don't worry. Another thing that I like about this collaboration thing, I mean, like, I looked up the credits, which are also, again, anonymous in a way, right? And I looked it up, and I have a pretty good idea of who is who with a lot of those credentials. And some of them are musicians that I also love dearly. So first of all, very, very good choices.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But was it also important for them to be part of this let's keep the music first thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I even on our 10-minute track of Alam that we did for the compilation, also in 2021, one of the people specifically said, look, keep me anonymous. You guys are anonymous. Keep me anonymous. And without revealing too much, she's very much in the public eye. She's a person that's quite known. So that was another one where we felt, wow, that's some wild stuff. We're able to actually get this person to sing on the track.
Yeah.
So
that also, of course, speaks for the quality of the music. And with such a high quality output, I'm 100% sure that you have already been asked, but do you guys ever see doing something like concerts, tours? Or do you say like, no?
Yeah, it's really funny you bring that up. Again, talk about synchronicity. So I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, somebody we know well and love dearly, who's a big fan, we're a big fan of them. They asked about, again, not to go into too much detail, but it's a pretty known festival. And I think just the state of the band right now and the state of the world, I think it would be difficult logistically to do it. But I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, how real is this? Like, what would need to happen for us to make this happen? And I mean, the number one thing is we would have to get together and rehearse and prepare.
Yeah.
Right.
Which would also, of course, take up time, right?
Exactly. That's going to be a huge, and we don't want to half-ass it. We want to do it for real. And it's almost like either we do it the punk rock way, where it's the 3 of us without rehearsal and we just go out and just, blast.
Yeah.
Or we actually make certain arrangements to have all these people come along and make it the full production. And for that to happen, again, there's a lot of logistics.
Yeah. And of course, it would take away something from the how should I say, the anonymity thing, right?
Sure.
But you have already spoken about or hinted at songwriting. How must we envision the three of you writing songs or compositions? Because I mean, like, we have 3 guys spread across 3 countries, 3 continents. How do you do it?
Very tidy. We do it in a very organized fashion, because I think any other approach would drive us absolutely bananas. Yeah, I mean, it's case by case, depending on the song, depending on the record. Whether it starts with a guitar riff or it starts with a drum idea. Some kind of tribal ritualistic thing that feels almost like a loop, or feels like krautrock, or feels like that kind of vibe. you know, you start to construct the songs around those ideas, and whether those ideas remain, I mean, we try to serve the song, you know, if it makes sense, then it stays. And, you know, I mentioned this before, like no idea is a bad idea. And I think the one thing is the fact that we're all pretty open-minded. We have a pretty, like I said, pretty large library of things that we listen to, where we pull from, we say, oh, like this and this and this and this. And if it's something the other two guys or one guy doesn't know about, then we play on it, see how it goes. And again, essentially, I own the sessions, to make it, you know, to make it at least centralized. And then you know, tempo tracks and BPMs and stems and all kinds of technical mumbo jumbo that kind of go into it. We try to not keep things technical. Like that's the stuff that cheapens a little bit. But we do have a workflow that we follow for it to work.
You've just mentioned the term sessions. Must we think of you three getting together online at certain time slots and say like, okay, we work now together?
We do that too. Yeah. Cubase Live is our friend. We do use that, which is cool. I mean, pretty much any tool that is able to be worked into, you know, you mentioned time, like time is of the essence. We all have pretty busy lives, and we kind of plan around weekends and say, look, like so and so date, does it work for you? Let's get together, let's do this. And it does obviously extend the process, because it's not like we're in a rehearsal every day or a couple of times a week. So we try to make the sessions productive, and try to have a goal, right? Like, oh, like today we're going to try to finish all the guitar parts, or today we're going to finish the track, the instrumental, then, you know, vocals come, and so on and so forth. But I think there's definitely always an aim of a goal of, hey, you know what, today we're going to focus on this. Because again, now in this remote world that we're all part of, I mean, you and I just talking right now, it does make things
with a multi-hour time difference.
Exactly. And make, you know, the world's your oyster. Like, you kind of use technology at your disposal, you know, and we do anything that works. And again, we have essentially just weekends that we plan around to write. Sometimes we take time off. I've taken for a 5/7/7/2. We essentially took a week off for that, and the dudes came here, and we just tracked a lot of that live, which was, again, a different feeling, right? A different feeling to the music, which is, we're trying to keep things spicy.
Is it possible to say that, for example, one of you is the drummer, the other is the bass player, and the other does whatever? Or does everybody do a little bit of everything?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's varying degrees of musical education. I would say I'm the least, you know, knowledgeable as far as music theory goes. A lot of the stuff that I play is very much feel. You know, but yeah, we do have kind of relegated roles. I mean, you know, I sing, I play guitar, any sort of things with strings, I play them.
The harp.
And again, the harp, exactly. Very Baroque. Yeah, and the other guys, the drummer, percussion, and then, you know, the bass player. But they have more of a musical education, and I think that was what the other draw for me too, is let me work with people that are better than I am.
I must say, I know that sounds stupid when doing an interview with somebody, but I also have to say that when listening to all the records that you have done by now, there are audible quality steps, which is, of course, interesting, because it always sounds like夢遊病者. But I think that's also something that you strive for, right? showing that the music that you are filtering is becoming better and better on a quality level, right?
Yeah, I mean, production, comparatively
Yeah.
to our demo to now, I think definitely changed. And again, depending on who you ask, got better, it got worse. Sometimes people like to sound like they're in a stairwell, inside of a toilet, inside of a washing machine. So for them, that's quality. That's cool. No judgment.
Yeah.
So again, it's evolution, and we hope that the people that are listening, that are into it, like yourself, which we very much appreciate, go along for the ride. They're in that speeding car down the highway with us.
Yeah, what I think about music like the one that you make, I think it needs, production-wise, I think it needs clarity in a way. It must, in order for somebody to hear all the elements, all the layers, all the hints, all the different little things in there, it needs clarity, because otherwise it's just a swamp. And
Sure.
yeah. You have said that for 5772, you recorded in person. Is that also
Yes.
something that still takes place, or do you now do it differently?
Yeah, so that was, I would say, a special case, because I think from the demo to that, we felt like, look, like we have something and we have ideas. And I think, again, you got to keep the hunger going in a way, not to sound too corny, but that felt apropos for the music, because there was a lot of parts and a lot of elements that are very off the cuff. There's things that kind of go off tempo, or things that go off the click, or it just needs a certain freeness to it. And we do try to maintain that still. Not to say that that's completely dissipated, but I think that specific album and that content and those tracks definitely called for a live in-person recording.
You do the vocals for Sleepwalker. However, I sometimes feel as if it's less real vocals with lyrics, but more like vocal, quote unquote, harmonies, as if it's another instrument. Because sometimes when I listen to the mixes, I have a feeling that the vocals are a little subdued, a little bit more in the background. They're not front and center. Is that for you important, that the vocals are an instrument, another layer?
Absolutely. Yeah, I see it as an element, and again, I think in the spirit of David Lynch, in the spirit of soundtrack music and Ennio Morricone and all those guys, that's key. That the structure that we come to know as metal or rock or pop or any of those genre kind of structures, which I've spoken about it before, I kind of take issue with. I think it's important for people to feel a little freer too from that. Like, oh, what's expected? Oh, like this is a chorus, this is a verse.
Yeah.
And with that said, we're not so avant-garde to the point where it's just going to be drone and noise and just a wash. I think it's important for there to be groove and melody and sections to songs and things like that. So in a way, we are walking contradictions, that we do want the element of the soundtrack, but we also want the element of the sing-along in a way. And it's funny that you say, your impression of, vocals being not front and center or somewhere lurking and what have you. It's key, but it's funny, the new album that we're working on, it's almost counter to that. So
it is, because, for example, on the last track, The Bad Luck That Saved You From the Worst Luck, I've noticed that it is as if the vocals creep up. They're becoming louder and more poignant, and then all of a sudden there is this shift, and they turn into exactly that another layer, that less how should I say, it's less clear when which word begins and when which words end, but it's very, very center, and just like another drony element in your sound. Is that position of instruments in general in your music, is that something that you play with, that you think, you know, okay, here the guitar is in the foreground, okay, let's move it back a little?
Yeah, I mean, imagine you having a dream or a nightmare. Like it's never all one color, right? There's the colors kind of fade in and out. There's haze. There's certain things that feel vibrant. There's things that feel more dull. So I think in a way we do try to emulate that notion that you're in a space and you're in an experience. So that is key. That is also key for us.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the new record title. And I had to write it down for me. Scope of Oboe Exoskeleton.
Yes.
I mean, like, I know that you have a knack for not giving away too much with your record titles, apart from the record before, Noc na kraju sveta, which in Yugoslavian means night at the end of the world. But this one, the new one, it makes no sense, and it makes all sense. You know, you can put so much thought into that. Did you just play along, or did you really want this to be a multi-level thing?
Yes, that was very intentional. And obviously when you have, number one, such a long title, number two, such a complex title, you have to kind of double down, right? You can't go halfway on it. There's a lot of things to that. I mean, the scopophobo aspect, it is a parallel to, in a way, to the current record that we're working on. So the scopophobo aspect, you know, there's a Greek base to it. It's more about the mental state, you know. It talks about the fear of the evil eye, the fear of being looked at. Mm-hmm. And the exoskeleton aspect is the idea of, and again, there's multiple interpretations, right? It's the exoskeleton that, you know, protects you from the fear of the evil eye, or it's the thing that encases you in that fear, right? So there's always a dichotomy in that regard. I think same as with our music, same with our approach. So yeah, that was very, very intentional.
Did you want to include the name of an instrument in the title, the oboe?
I mean, I think that was another interesting sync. Until you pointed it out, honestly, no, to be totally frank. To be totally frank, but we do have, you know, oboe on the brand new record that we're working on right now. So
so you're just trying to lure us in. Okay.
So there you go. There's your synchronicity.
Yeah. Do you know the term portmanteau?
Yes.
Is that something that you like? You know, like connecting things, two different things, three different things, making them into one thing? Because I think in a way your music is a portmanteau.
Yeah, it's the spirit of noise rock and grindcore. You know, like there is always a tendency for that, where people use certain expressions or words and they change them around. I mean, maybe in a certain sense, there is, you know, the laughter with the tears. It's like the Balkan way, you know, like you can't have just laughter. You have to have the tears, and you have to kind of appreciate both. So I think there is something there too. I mean, there's a certain sarcasm to the last track on the album, you know, the bad luck that saved you from worse luck. You know, there's many ways to interpret that. What's up with the glass? Is it half full? Is it half empty? And what is the final takeaway, right?
An Irish friend of mine had a good answer to that glass half empty, half full. He said, if it's whiskey, it's always half full. If it's water, it's always half empty.
Perfect.
But were you aware that the way that your new record title ends, Skelet, that it's German?
Yes, that was very intentional.
Okay.
Yeah, so the track in itself, the lyrics on the track are German on the last track. So we had a German console, we got, translations done and figuring out rhymes and making sure that the lexicon was correct and the grammar was correct and what have you. So there was a ophthalmologist in the turn of the century that was doing studies on eyes, but specific to the superstitious aspect. What happens to the eye when it looks, the gaze, and what happens when somebody is looked at as well. And they were making certain connections to the idea of illness and ailing and somebody getting ill from the wishes of some people that would look upon them, right? So that was, again, very, very, very intentional.
What struck me about the record is that, to me, it sounds like an introspective record. It sounds, for example, Mirrors Turned Inward. It seems very self-reflective. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think everything we make has that sentiment. It's easy to scream at the clouds and blame the world. And we're all guilty of it, myself included on occasion. But I think in the metal sphere, it's who's introspective. Like, what's a band that feels truly introspective, where you feel pain, you feel their pain, you feel their melancholy. I mean, like, I was talking to a friend of mine talking about Obscura by Gorguts, and how if you read the lyrics, they're not typical death metal lyrics, right? Like, it's like affected poetry. It's true sadness. It's really somebody suffering. You feel it, and it's not about corpses, and it's not about skeletons climbing out of graves or anything like that. There is always this element of fantasy to metal, which is, again, it's cool, but I think there's definitely a big dash of reality to this band and the lyrical and conceptual content.
When I listen to Mirrors Turned Inward over and over again, is there a part, or are there parts on that song that are played backwards?
Yes.
Finally, I thought I was going crazy.
That's our aim. Our aim is complete. We try to make people feel like they're crazy.
Well, it's your music's aim.
Yes, indeed.
Bad music. Would you consider yourself more of a pessimist or more of an optimist? Because the optimist would say, oh, the eagle flies so nicely. The pessimist would say, the bad luck that saved you from worse luck.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think case by case, depending on the day. I mean, I think I'm a secret optimist, maybe. Secret pessimist. I don't know. It's hard to say.
You have already mentioned the love for soundtracks. And then, of course, one question that must come up is, which movie has impressed you lately?
Ooh. All right. I'm gonna get real melancholy and corny. Past Lives. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Not yet.
But everything about that movie, just how it's constructed, the soundtrack, the acting, how the camera is handled. You know what I mean? It's almost treated like vignettes. There's these kind of moments in these people's lives, and it's over a span of a certain amount of time. I don't want to give anything away, but you feel like you're immersed in the movie, but also like a lot of the techniques that are being used, you start thinking like old school 70s filmmaking, you know what I mean, where everything is very intentional. There's a lot of long takes. It makes you, it quote unquote tests your patience in the way that we're in this attention market now with people needing short bits of content, and that's all they can process. Is definitely something you need to commit to. So I definitely dug that movie. It's a great movie.
I asked that because I'm like, you have always carried a love for krautrock on your sleeves, for German music of the 70s. But now, this time, it seems as if a certain admiration for, let's say, spaghetti Western movie scores has been, I don't want to say added, but has been made more obvious. Like Morricone, Rota, Moroder, Goblin. Was this a clear intention to like say, okay, we love this way of scoring movies, and also these movies, of course. That is something that we want to push a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, again, it's the idea of the push and pull. What is being, it's song by song basis, album to album basis, and then the band as a whole. I think that element always lurks within even Ichigo. Like we had some of those elements on that record. I think specific to Celestian Fur Coat, it called for that part. Again, talking about pulling things out of the ether. So whether it overtly sounds like Morricone or overtly sounds like Western, Western movies or that kind of approach, I think it's again pulling those books out of the library and saying, what is the passage that we're going to kind of read to you in this moment? That's the narration of the part. The narration of the part is a slide, you know what I mean? Or it's ocarina or any of those kinds of textural elements that are being used in those movies.
Would you be willing to score a movie?
So that was a big internal talking about looking inward, right? That was a big internal question that we had even with this music video. Do we put our music to visuals, concrete visuals, actual real manifested things, instead of leaving it to the listener? So we kind of we had a long discussion with it, and we're like, look, this is a new thing. We're all about pushing, right? So let's try it. And I think that was maybe the same way as the demo, kind of a sketch test of, can it be done? If the opportunity kindly presents itself, absolutely, that would be amazing. But again, the thematic element of the movie or the short film or whatever we would be scoring would have to align with our conceptual and ideological, if you want to call it that, thinking and approaches. You know what I mean? So that's tough too. It's almost like, does it come from within or does it come from the outside?
As we've mentioned, like spaghetti Western scores or Italian movie scores, and krautrock. I mean, like those are things that more and more people become reacquainted with. But in the greater scope of music, those are still obscure things, right? Thinking about German music from 50 years ago, thinking about scores that have been done 50, 60 years ago. Is that something that you like, finding the gems of the obscure?
Well, I think people see this band in that way too. You know what I mean? We're we're not known, nor are we striving to be known in whatever capacity of the expression can go. So there is a self-reference, but there is definitely a reference to the greater world of music and film and art and painting, literature, and what have you, that I think we find little gems in, like, ooh, like something we would be talking about in the day-to-day, and then it would just kind of appear out of the ether, like, oh, like we were just talking about this, look, and say, okay, well, that's maybe a direction that we go. And it's not bandwagon jumping. I think it's more about searching for the proper books in the library, because again, the library is massive, even post Blogspot world that we live in, because that was a big, I don't know how it was for you. For me, that was a huge thing. Like, I wrote many years ago for a couple of blog spots, and that was very much about pulling things out of the ether, and oh, this is something from the 80s that's incredible, or from the 90s, or from the 70s, that things people may not know about. And is there a subconscious influence on culture and people as well? Somebody listens to something that may not be known, and then suddenly becomes part of the cultural continuum. So I think that's also key in a way. Like, things aren't lost. Like this record, okay, it's made. Some people care about it. Some people don't care about it. Don't challenge me. Don't put oboes in my metal. You know what I mean? There's those people. And then it kind of gets dug into the earth again. And then 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, what happens to the album? Is it on some new fancied AI blog spot? Or is it, imprinted or downloaded in people's brains because somebody put a keyword in and they suddenly discovered it? So I think that element of discovery, I think, is very key for us with the way that we make the music and the way that we discover the music ourselves. So we want to be curious. So I know that's a very long-winded answer, but we want to be curious about what comes of the stuff that we pull from the ether. So yeah.
You've mentioned that you talk with the other two basically on a daily basis. I don't want to know through which medium, but would you say that this band is now a band with you and your two, maybe not best friends, but very close friends by now?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's lyrical content, there's things that are personal. Everything it's not rooted in just history or fantasy or what have you. There's personal stories that we say, look, like this feels right. Let's talk about this for the song or for this album, what have you. So I think we've known each other a long enough time to definitely call each other friends, which is amazing. Again, the long distance thing and the far away thing doesn't feel that far away, which is cool.
It also seems as if you're pretty good friends with Sentient Ruin, because you've basically been on the label ever since, right? How close is that connection nowadays? Is it okay, they release our stuff, or they are also the first ones, maybe at a certain demo stage or wherever, to hear it and maybe give some feedback?
Yeah, I mean, the feedback part, I'll take that question backwards. So the feedback part, I mean, people will have feedback. People are going to have their opinions. We do operate as a unit. So yeah, I mean, I think there's things that are considered when, there's a recent exchange where, the label was mentioning, oh, you should write things like 5772, or you should go back to the black metal days, or what have you. And like, that's also in a way, to me personally, a little bit of a misnomer too. I mean, I think maybe, I guess, for ease of use, we've been called black metal. I don't know. Are we black metal? Again, we can dissect it till the cows come home, as the expression goes. But Yeah, I mean, the split that we did with Sutek Hexen, that was very much, Sentient Ruin was the conduit and the catalyst for that relationship, and for that to be, manifested, and a lot of the subject matter deals with the label in a way. And again, you have to kind of read between the lines. In that regard, we have a lot of hidden gems. We're all about Easter eggs, if you will. So especially that album was kind of a turning point for us to truly appreciate this relationship. And again, we're very self-aware. I mean, these things, relationships are the things that make life in a way. So we are very cognizant, and we're definitely, I mean, we're incredibly thankful for the relationship and being able to put our records out for the world to listen to. That's kind of the bottom line. This record that's out now was a true labor of love. That was a very long road. We were done with it in 2021, and for better or for worse, there was a lot of things happening during that time in the world, and pressing plant issues and relationships and all kinds of different things are happening that essentially delayed the record. But we are waiting on our copies. They will arrive at the doorstep soon enough, and hopefully the fans and the listeners will get a taste of the vinyl and the cassette and the CD and what have you. But yeah, it's definitely, we definitely appreciate that relationship. It's definitely brought us, I mean, they're effectively our social media voice, if you will. You know what I mean? We don't have our Bandcamp is basically it. So they've been kind of, in a way, directly or indirectly, been the mouthpiece for the band.
I have one more question before we come to the quickfire round.
Sure.
You've already dropped the term AI, artificial intelligence. What do you personally think about it? And could you ever see AI being involved in Mungjo Bingja?
The short answer is you got to know your enemy. So, I'm not so black and white on it. I think there's positives and there's negatives, and I think in the world sphere also, I mean, like, there's things happening with predictive cancers and what have you with AI. So I don't want to just say it's all bad or it's all good. Again, just like this band, we never take the side of the ill or the good. I mean, I think I would say probably we tend for the good. I think the intention is for when people listen to this record, they feel better about themselves and the world. They smile. So I think that is the aim. Does AI make people smile? Some people, I don't know. I don't know to what degree we would infuse AI into what we make. I mean, again, like I said, no idea is a bad idea, so nothing's off the table. I can't unequivocally say now that that's it. We will only use analog gear, and we will emulate Amandul, forever. It's hard to say, but it's something that I think the world should probably be conscious of. And know. I think it's better to know what it is and how to wield it. I think that's what it is, how to wield it. Can we wield it at this point? Are we too far along?
Maybe. One last question that just struck me because you've mentioned it. You asked that question, are we black metal? I would definitely say no. Is there any genre where you say, okay, if you label my band as that, then I'm happy? Because I have one that I think that is Sleepwalker.
Yeah, I mean, my happiness, it's again back to your question of the pessimist or the optimist. You can call it anything. Call it potatoes. Like, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, is a dish tasty? That's that's the objective, I guess, way to judge things, right? Like maybe, and then everyone has different palates and different degrees of spiciness that they can take and what have you. And again, there is a variability of the subjective in that regard, but I think with an open mind, it could be tasty. The dish could be tasty. You know what I mean? So that's really my question. And I think discussing genre in general just irks me, because then you're in a box. Call us avant-garde, call us psychedelic thrash, call us prog grind, or any sort of weird amalgam of things. Sure, cool, whatever.
I have one that I think is the only one that I would ever apply to Sleepwalker. If anybody asks me as a person, not as a reviewer or as a journalist, krautrock, because krautrock has never been one genre. Krautrock was Kraftwerk, and it was at the same time Amandül, and it was Tangerine Dream, and it was Harmonia, and it was Neu and Can, and all those 6 bands don't sound anything alike.
And Guru.
Right, and therefore, because of the openness of the term, which is just an umbrella term for unrelated bands or musically unrelated bands.
Sure.
That is the only label where I say, like, that fits. But I know what you mean. Yeah. Because basically there is no label or no umbrella term big enough for what you do. And I remember only yesterday I talked to a friend of mine who said, like, okay, what are your 2 most avant-garde-ish records of 2023? And when I told him, okay, one is Sleepwalker and the other one is Sprain, he looked at me and he was just shaking his head, and he was like, you will never be a normal person. And I was like, avant-garde.
Kindred Spirits, man. I love that record. That's a great record. That's a great record. And yeah, you can call it that. You can call it avant-garde.
So, the quickfire round. Of course, I had to check which questions I asked you on the first one. And I got to a certain kind of even theme. You will get 5 questions on music and 5 questions on movies.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's start with something simple. Scorsese versus Coppola.
Ooh.
I never said I would be. Yeah, but come on, me.
That's a tough one. Scorsese, just based on the amount of times that I watch his movies over Coppola's movies, but that's an unfair fight.
But I would ask.
That's a bloody boxing match.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I out of those 2, the movie that I've seen the most is definitely The Godfather. But when I add up all the times that I've watched Scorsese, he wins, definitely.
Right.
Also because he just does way more. He's more productive.
True.
MREP, amphetamine reptile, or touch and go.
Ooh. Tough. Amphetamine reptile. Let's go that way. I mean, I think they both win. I think either one you choose, you win. So let's go that direction.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to know a little bit more about MREP, check out our channel here, because we got that nice interview with Thomas Haselmeyer. Room versus Boyhood.
Room versus Boyhood. Because I didn't see Room.
Yeah, I have to choose Boyhood.
Yeah.
Gorguts versus Krellis.
That's a trick question, isn't it? Trick question. Lemmy is God. I love that movie to death. Gorguts, but I do love all the dudes in Krellis. And again, I think that what they're making is an extension of Gorguts. So, Gorguts.
The Exorcist versus Halloween.
Exorcist, because I love Freakin' to death, so I have to choose him.
Oh, so you're the one who killed him a few months ago.
It was me with a poison arrow. God forbid, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that he hasn't done anything in like years and decades, but that guy was a genius, definitely.
Yes, yes.
And I
French,
would still say that
French Connection.
Exorcist
Oof.
is one of the 20 most disturbing horror movies of all time, you know.
Mm,
Can versus Harmonia.
can.
Hmm.
I love them both, but if I gotta choose,
Alien versus Aliens.
oh, Alien, hands down.
Morricone versus Rota.
Ooh. But the sheer amount of listens, again, I gotta go the Scorsese route, Morricone.
And now I don't know how I would answer it because they both did phenomenally. But two guys who played the Joker, and just based on their performance as the Joker, Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix?
Jack Nicholson.
No. Heath Ledger or
yeah,
Joaquin
Heath
Phoenix.
Ledger.
Although I have to say I would also say Heath Ledger, but I have to say what Phoenix did with that figure is amazing. But I can understand your choice.
Absolutely.
And last one, as you have that love for German music, the Scorpions versus Creator.
That's a tough one too, because I do love Creator. Scorpions, yeah, have to go with Scorpions. Sorry.
No problem. I would go with Creator.
70s Scorpions, man. Uli John Roth, incredible, man. Incredible guitar player.
It's interesting. So many people. Give me an album that I should listen to, and I will do that right after this, as I have to mow my lawn.
I love In Trance.
Okay.
I love that.
Then I will listen to that one. So, The Nameless. Thanks for all your answers. Thanks for the insight into the band. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And everybody listen to Sleepwalker, or as they want to say, Mungjo Bingja. The new EP, as it's called, is still, I've way more than 30 minutes of music, is amazing. It will, just like the previous one, end up in my top 10 this year. I can already say that for sure. If you like their music, go ahead, go Bandcamp, go wherever you want to and buy the stuff. If you like what we do here on The Veil of Sound, then give us a subscription here. Maybe give us a like on one of our socials, Facebook or on Instagram. If you want to support us a little bit more, then go check out our Patreon. We're always happy to find somebody who likes our stuff. And otherwise, for me, there's nothing more left to say then. Now your chance for final last words.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. Take care, my friend.